my goodness gracious, it is time once again. It's a new episode of The Score. How exciting! Yay! Yes, absolutely. It is episode 17 of The Score. Can you believe it?
That's just wild.
Oh my gosh.
We've had 17 episodes.
What happens when you're 17?
Nothing good.
Nothing. Waiting to be 18.
Yeah, I guess so. Like, we're taking our APs, I guess. our SATs, stressing about what college we're gonna apply to.
Yeah, taking in the pressure of everyone asking us what we're gonna do with the rest of our lives. Yeah.
Okay, well, it's going to be a great show.
Anyway.
It's going to be a great show. As always, my name is Rocky Jones. I am the EDI director here at Minnesota Opera, and I am here with my amazing, lovely, talented co-host, the incredible civic engagement manager here at MN Opera, the lovely Paige Reynolds. Hi.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good. We're doing this. I was saying before we hit record that we're doing this a little bit earlier than we normally do in the day. And so I'm just wondering how this is going to go because I'm not as caffeinated as I usually am.
I'm feeling it. Yeah, definitely feeling it.
We are theater people. We are not made for the AM.
No.
Unless it's like, 1, 2, 3 AM. But usually we are joined by our third musketeer, the lovely and talented also Mr. Lee Bynum, but he is off dealing with stuff, so he couldn't be here with us this week. But shout out to Lee, we miss you. But we thought, well, we had so much fun last time, why don't we just invite back our amazing impact department coordinator, the fabulous Frankie Charles, to be our guest co-host again this week. Yay! Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, well, it's an honor. You are our first repeat guest.
Ooh, it is an honor.
How are you doing today?
Good. It's a little windy outside. It's nice. I'm feeling the fall and I'm enjoying it.
Oh
Yeah, finally. I mean, it's been like 80 degrees up until like 2 days ago. It's been so weird. I finally get to wear a sweater. I'm happy about it.
Same. I have my IKEA bag full of winter clothes that has stayed zipped. I took it out, but like I haven't actually needed it until today when I checked the forecast and was like, oh, we need layers. Oh, it's time to layer. It's time to wear sweaters and jackets and wool socks. Those fun things.
Of course, we're saying this now, but like in 6 months when we're still doing it, it's going to be like, oh my God, I want to die. But
that's because how we feel in February.
Yeah. So, but for now, the novelty is just, it has not worn off at all. It's like, ooh, I haven't seen this sweater in like, I don't know, 3 months or something.
Yeah, I had that moment too, going through my closet, and I was just like, oh, I love this sweater.
Well, so for those of you who don't know us, who perhaps are new to the show, this is Minnesota Opera's podcast, where we talk about things that are going on in the zeitgeist, but more specifically classical music, opera, pop culture, the arts in general, but through a lens of, people of color, Black folks, Latinx folks, Asian folks, Indigenous folks, but also marginalized groups, LGBTQ plus folks, women, disabled folks. And we are just so happy to have you. for our discussion today. I guess we're gonna start off with really quick, since I have my two good art friends here.
Yeah.
Did you all read that article in the New York Times? Did you read it? I don't even, I can't stop thinking about it. It's so petty.
Your rendition of it was really like, I didn't want to go and read it because your rendition was just so comical that I didn't want it to ruin it.
The way Rocky summarized it, I was like, this has to be as good, if not better, than the actual article.
Yeah.
I because I wanted you all to read it so bad, because like I haven't been able to stop thinking about it for the last week because it is so crazy. It's so crazy. Just for any of you who haven't read it, like these two writers in Boston, they are part of this writing collective. They are quote unquote friends, I guess.
Are they?
Maybe not
anymore. But so Dawn and Sonia. Dawn is this white woman who I guess her whole life has fantasized about just donating a kidney, not to like her friend, not to her family member, but just her just taking the kidney out of her body, throwing it out into the ether, and whoever wants a kidney, come on and agree. Which, I mean, it's a very selfless act, you know. I don't know if I'm that good of a person.
See, and I don't know if you should gauge good bad with that, because like you need your kidneys and you don't need both of them, but like unless there's a very good reason, and this woman sought out a reason to give away her kidney from what I understood, so she did that.
Yeah, you know, yes, and it was her choice. So that aside, she donates the kidney. It goes to a stranger, and she sets up a private Facebook group and invites a whole bunch of like her friends from this writing collective to be a part of this Facebook group where she's just sort of documenting her journey of giving the kidney, of recovering from the surgery, of like contacting the recipient.
And this was the first part where I
like
started to get confused. I started to have questions.
Yes.
This woman's motives.
Absolutely. And she writes this letter to like not knowing who the recipient is yet. We find out that she meets the recipient and takes a picture with them and is in contact with them, but she writes this letter that she posts to the Facebook group that's like, I've been dreaming of you. I've been dreaming of saving you, doing what I can to be a wonderful person and save you with my kidney. And it's just like, okay. So then there's Sonia, who is a part of the writing collective, who Dawn considers like, I guess, her best friend in the whole world or something. They're close. And so she can see that Sonia has read the posts, but hasn't liked any of the posts. And so she's like, why hasn't my best friend Sonia liked any of these posts? And she then emails Sonia and she's like, hey girl, how are you? Just wanted to check in. How's the family? How's your husband and kids and whatnot? By the way, I noticed that you have did you see that I gave?
Have you been on Facebook?
I gave a kidney away. Did you see that? Did you did you see that happened? And so Sonia then writes back and she's like, oh girl, yes, absolutely. What a beautiful selfless act. You were so brave, whatever. And then I guess, like, long story short, like that answer was just kind of not enough, and they start going back and forth, and Dawn is just kind of like, I don't think we're as close as we are, or I guess we're not as close as I thought we were. And Sonia is just like, I didn't realize that this mattered so much to you, that I liked your Facebook posts, but I'm sorry, I guess. And so then this other writer,
could you say that again?
okay, Siri, no, Siri.
Siri's like, what's the tea?
Siri wants to know the tea. Siri, you're so nosy. Oh my goodness. That was my FBI handler. What's tea, sis? No, but then she's like, oh, this other writer, Tom, who is a messy bee who lives for drama, jumps into the chat and he's like, oh, hey, Dawn, did you see that Sonia wrote a new story, a short story about kidney donation? I wonder, I know, I want to have a sit down with Tom. I want to have a cocktail. I want to get Tom's entire, from the beginning to the end, like his perspective.
What really goes on in this little writing group?
I mean,
tell us.
And he's just like, I wonder who the inspiration is.
Feigning ignorance.
Sounds familiar, huh? And so she reads the story, and Sonia went and took her letter to the recipient and changed like 2 words in it. And it's this story about a Chinese American woman who needs a kidney transplant, and she gets a donation from a white woman who, much like Dawn, just sort of wanted to donate a kidney randomly to a stranger. And, you know, it's this very sort of, you know, examining sort of the white savior complex. And then Dawn is just like, I'm actually gonna like get into a big fight with you about this and sue. And Sonia's like, this is my artistic expression. It's my artistic freedom. How dare you? And like at first, I kind of felt myself kind of siding with Sonia, because it's like, okay, like, you know, you put the story out in the ether and she got inspired by it and she wrote this story kind of telling yourself about you. You know, yeah, you could be mad that your friend did that, but
I mean, it also is reflecting the way you actually acted in real
Yeah.
life.
I mean,
I'm looking through the article, and Dawn celebrated her kidney-versary and appeared on at a UCLA health lake. Appeared as a UCLA health laker for a day at the Staples Center to support live organ donation. So if she's that public, I don't know. People can draw inspiration from anywhere.
I mean, I'm just saying, however, the problem then becomes Dawn finds an earlier version of the story where she just plagiarized the whole thing. Like letter, word for word. And Sonia's like, it's my artistic expression, how dare you? And so then Dawn decides to sue. The story gets pulled from festivals, like short story collections, because it was kind of taking off. And then this is where the turn comes. Like, Sonia has been maintaining this whole time, like, I don't know her. I don't care about her kidney donation. Yeah, I read it and it inspired me to like do like something else. And then the group chat texts are subpoenaed by Dawn's lawyers, and which is just the worst nightmare.
Oh gosh, can you imagine?
Can you imagine? Oh my God.
Oh no.
No.
I have to go into hiding.
But also just like worst nightmare, because it's like I mean, I know for a fact, like I am on, you know, a number of different group chats. And of course there's a group chat with like all the friends, and there's a group chat with like all the friends minus this person, and then all the friends minus this person. And of course they started as like, oh my God, it's Julie's birthday, we should plan something for her. And then it turned into, did you see what Julie did on Instagram? And so I'm sure there's one about me.
There's
You
gotta
know,
be.
where I'm not included. And to like, I can't even imagine, like, and I know that my friends love me. These people didn't love Dawn at all because because all these texts are just like, girl, I saw what Dawn posted on Facebook and it's so crazy. I have to write a story about it. I tried not to plagiarize the letter, but it's too good. It's too good. She's too Karen. Oh my God. And like it just brings up all of these questions around artistic freedom. And like obviously I'm team no one. It's kind of like, you know, Monique and Candace last year on Real Housewives of Potomac. I'm team no one. But like it's just so wild, it's so petty. I just
Everybody's
can't believe
messy.
it. I just can't believe
Everybody's
it. And that
messy.
it's in the New York Times and then we're all just sort of sitting here thinking about it.
Yeah, because I mean, my problem with Sonia early on. At first, I was Team Sonia, and then I was like, "Wait, y'all clearly aren't friends. How come you just didn't tell her a long time ago that like I I think you a little confused about how close we actually are. It's not like that. You're great. We just don't click as friends like that. Or, you know, she could have let her down easier or something like that. But I also get the impression that Dawn is like one of those white women who like feigns closeness to people of color or just like, oh yeah, I know Paige. Oh my God, yes, we're such good friends. I just love her. And I'm like, we were coworkers and that was it.
We've spoken 2 times. Oh my God, Rocky's so fun. He's so fun.
Oh, yeah, no, there had to have been a better way to handle that.
All around.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like Dawn sort of didn't realize how she was sort of coming off to people and just sort of how her whole sort of selfless act sort of is just part of the general, and the way she was sort of talking about it, expressing it, this private Facebook group, this letter, just sort of contributing to the general ecosystem of sort of white supremacy and Karenish tendencies. But then Sonia also has to realize that like it's one thing to like, you know, be shady on a group chat with your friends, but it's also a bit jerkish to just sort of take all of that verbatim and then like turn it into like a story that, you know, gets disseminated into the entire world without any sort of warning.
Yeah.
That's just, you know, I don't know.
Yeah. It like really escalated things. It's like what could have just been group chat tea is now like litigation tea.
Yeah. And all over.
And in New York Times.
Yep.
Tea.
Well, what I find so fascinating about that is that Dawn is the one that pitched the story to the New York Times.
Oh, word?
Yes. So like Dawn just like, I don't know, her self-awareness meter, it seems low.
Yeah. But people are crazy.
Yes. Absolutely. So I mean that's just, you know, the story that has been sort of rocking the art world, but I think it does bring up some very interesting questions for all of us in all sorts of various fields, whether it's literature, whether it's, you know, visual art, whether it's opera or classical music, just sort of this idea of, we sit here and we talk about artistic freedom, and yes, that is an important thing. Like artists should be able to create without sort of limits, without borders, should be able to explore dark and murky, controversial territory. But at the same time, just who, and especially I think we were talking about it in terms of comedy, because we're thinking about this new Dave Chappelle special, which I have not seen. I don't particularly feel like I need to see it. As a gay Black man, I've heard, plenty of homophobic and transphobic jokes since I was on the playground. So I guess I don't really need to listen to 72 minutes more of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. As a trans Latinx masculine human being, it's tough to see a comedy special like that in the same place as something as impactful as Disclosure was, because that as a documentary on Netflix was very, very important to the trans community. And then you've also got this Dave Chappelle special where he's just talking out of his ass, and it's sorry, Rocky. And he's just erasing a whole group of people because he doesn't think that he doesn't want them to exist. Like, there are trans Black people in the world. There are non-binary Black folks, all of that. And the way he talks about it in his special just erases their existence. And it's very short-sighted. And the fact that he doesn't see a problem with it is, I don't know. He's lived very comfortably where he's at and has decided not to try and engage with the new, like, the contemporary world very clearly. And it's sad, I think. It's just really sad.
Yeah, you make a good point about like the just the way he frames things, like really erasing like Black queer and trans folks, and that has been from a lot of the discussion that I've seen that has poured over into that too. Like it's being framed as like a thing of white queer and trans people attacking this Black man who was just making a joke, and it's just like, okay, what about all the Black trans folks who have a problem with it, who probably were fans of yours at one point? A lot of us were watching Chappelle's show and kikiing and hee ha haing, and now it's like, yeah, we've had to walk away from you in recent years because you refuse to evolve. But no, let's just make it all the LGBTQ people are white and they're coming after this Black man thing. Like that is so annoying and frustrating. And yeah,
especially when like LGBTQ plus folks have so much more going on, like
okay,
the stuff in Texas,
real problems,
like like actual problems, and then we've got this guy who's talking.
Yeah, I mean, I just, like, yes, you should be able to have that freedom, but then anybody who's consuming that art should be able to have the freedom to be in a dialogue with you, to be able to, throw that back at you, what you've created, and to say, hey, I thought that satire was about sort of lampooning, powerful people, the establishment. This actually just kind of feels like bullying. This just kind of feels like you're just kind of punching down at people, because people tend to think that, like, the LGBT, struggle was just all about marriage, and now we can get married and like we're done and we're cool and it's fine. And it's just like, and then like this statement that the CEO of Netflix released yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
Which was just like, oh, well, we've decided that, on-screen things like don't contribute to harm because look at the crime rates. They've gone down in the last 10 years. And she's like, sir, are you on crack? Is that what you smoke? Like
what is it? What is it?
Yeah. What reality is that person living in? Because those things don't correlate.
Like at all.
No.
And it's just like just kind of the infallibility of comedians, especially like, you know, these ultra famous, ultra rich comedians. It's just it blows my mind because, you know, I was also reading an article by Roxane Gay again in the New York Times yesterday, and she's talking about at the end, you know, he's spent, you know, all of this time sort of talking about, and there is a point to be made for, you know, kind of, you know, white supremacy in the way that it shows up in the LGBTQ community. Absolutely. I don't think that's the point that Dave Chappelle is making.
No, not at all.
But like at the end, he says something like, please stop, please give us a chance, please stop, oppressing us. And the us is meant to sort of represent Black men. But then at the end, it's just this montage of pictures of him with like wildly famous rich celebrities. And it's like, oh, no, that's the us. That's the us. It's not about Black. It's not about white. It's about like, super rich people, please stop canceling us. Please like allow us to just say whatever we want with impunity. And it got me thinking about just like comedy, like all over the place. And just like, I think about, like comic operas, like these operas that like, are quote unquote comedies from, the 17th, 18th, 19th century that are just like wildly problematic. Mozart's Abduction from the Seraglio. I'm probably not saying that right. Comes first to mind, but it's it's about like rape and human trafficking, and we're just like, oh, ha 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 ha. Oh, like isn't that and it's just like, this feeling that like of just this sort of preciousness around these pieces that like, well, we have to, watch it in the spirit that it was intended. And it's like, no, like things can evolve and change. And
if you're the spirit that it was intended, it's when you're talking about kidnapping and rape, and there is no intended positive spirit in any of that. Those things are very harmful to people. So it's just not funny. And when folks do operas with that kind of content, I just hope that they actually bring light to organizations and things that, I don't know, counteract some of this terribleness that the opera is highlighting. I don't even know, because like, I don't know how you come back from that.
Well, I think often the argument that you hear is that like, but the music is so pretty, the music is so virtuosic, and it's just like, okay, well then like let's have a concert. If it's so lovely.
Concert. There's also I think about how like a lot of the time when this music is, just so lovely or so beautiful, a lot of the time there's certain stuff that's like a trend of the time, or like a what's the word I'm looking for, motif of the time. You can, if it's really the music that you love, you could probably find something similar or of a similar era, or people are inspired by other people all the time. So why these particular pieces that we keep going back to? It's like how people try to call a Chevalier like the Black Mozart when he was alive before Mozart. So it's like, if anything, Mozart was inspired by him. If, like, I'm not saying that is fact. I'm not a historian, but I'm just saying there's no way that it was the other way around. So that's a perfect example of like, why is one person or one piece uplifted when the others are not? I feel like at this point, a lot of it, especially here in the US and just what has become most popular in our big like operas, is like ticket sales and what's popular, what people want to hear or what they think they want to hear.
Absolutely. And I think it really does fall on us as ticket buyers, as consumers of this media, to really just sort of think about, what it is that we really want to, because I mean, going back to Dave Chappelle, like, again, he's sitting up here talking about like how oppressed he is because, somebody has dared to, call him standing on stage yelling, "I'm Team Turf," has dared to call that transphobic. But like, are you really oppressed? Because this is like, like the fifth out of 6 Netflix specials that you have, been paid like $100 million or whatever to create. And this is the same platform that has a documentary like Disclosure, which outlines in great detail why transphobic media, the effect that transphobic media has on the transgender community globally, and why things like Dave Chappelle's special are actively causing harm. But he's still got the CEO of the company defending him because people want to watch it. Because that's the media, like Disclosure isn't making them a whole bunch of money. Dave Chappelle's specials are. So it kind of becomes incumbent upon us to actually like learn what's going on, why these things are happening, and to actively choose to say, I don't think I want to consume that anymore. Like, maybe this actually isn't funny. Maybe like these people aren't trying to steal my joy. They're just like hurt and scared. And we just need to be sensitive to that and to stop hurting people, because I don't know, it just seems like basic humanity 101 to me, that it's just like, it's much easier and cooler to just be kind to each other than to be like actively cruel to one another. Maybe I'm crazy. Seems like I am in American 2021 post Trump, but
no, you're absolutely right. And there's a big part of me that's just like, yo, Dave Chappelle, if you really cannot do this comedy thing without like punching down at trans folks, like maybe you're just not that funny. Like maybe, I mean, I'm not saying you never were, but maybe right at this moment, if you can't write a joke or write a show without doing that, like hang it up. Maybe you're done. Maybe that's it.
And there are plenty of outlets who I'm sure would love to have, a nice big juicy piece of transphobic commentary, but like, maybe just don't call it comedy. Just call it what it is, like your actual opinions about transgender
instead of hiding
people.
behind jokes.
I mean, I'm just saying. You can call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
Well,
that's enough of that.
On that. But no, I just implore, just, obviously our purview is really talking about the opera and classical music industry, but I think there's just an important lesson to just be gleaned from this for our industry in particular, because we just tend to traffic in these, you know, older stories from a different generation that, you know, and not just, you know, when it comes to issues of gender, but when it comes to issues of sexuality, when it comes to issues of race, when it comes to issues of ability, you know, just all of these stories that tend to like take people and otherize them or marginalize them or make fun of them. And it's actively harmful. So I just think it's an important lesson for all of us to just sort of think about, like, okay, like, you know, you want to do a performance of Madame Butterfly, but, you know, as we talked about in our first Fire the Cannon episode, you got to confront all of that problematic stuff. You got to talk about it. You got to figure out a way to present these pieces in ways that are not actively harmful. And if you can't do that, then you need to pull that from your schedule. I'm like, that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. I don't think I am, but
No, I think
so
you're right.
either.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, on to the next thing. So we're really excited because this past Monday was Indigenous Peoples Day. Abolish Christopher Columbus Day, obviously. And we are sitting here on the land of the Dakota people. We at Minnesota Opera this past season adopted a new land acknowledgement, and that whole process was led by Paige, which we were super excited about. And so when we come back, Paige is going to lead us on a discussion about the land acknowledgement, how that all happened, why land acknowledgements are important, and why you might want to incorporate one wherever you are. So we will be right back in 30 seconds or so. We'll see you soon. All right, bye. And we are back. The excerpt you just heard was from the opera Sundance by the Dakota composer Chappelle. And it's the perfect segue into our next segment where we have our, I don't know, I just feel so lucky that we have you, Paige.
Absolutely.
I really do.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, land acknowledgements, I feel like are something that are just so important and something that like so many people don't really understand, and that you came in, you took the reins, and you said, I'm going to lead this project for Minnesota Opera and help everyone understand in a way that is not scary. You know, I just think took a lot of skill and a lot of patience. And so since Indigenous Peoples Day was last Monday, I thought this was just would be a really good opportunity to just sort of talk about that process and why it's important, why it was important to us here at Minnesota Opera, and some of the things that we're doing besides just, putting a statement on our website to really respect and steward the land that's around us. So I'm going to turn it over mostly to you, Paige. But I guess like my first question is, what is a land acknowledgement and why is it important?
Yeah, so a land acknowledgement is a statement that just makes clear or informs people of where an organization or person or an event is located, and the indigenous people who have called that land home, who have stewarded it, who are deeply connected to it, all of that. It is especially important in places where any form of colonialism, and especially settler colonialism, has happened. As people or organizations are working towards justice or having more equitable relationships with the beings around them, you have to contend with the fact that, oh yeah, like before any of us got here, there were indigenous people here. And one of the just many injustices that we're contending with today is that, like, those people have been largely erased. I mean, actually, let me not even dance around it with the language. There was genocide.
Yes.
There was genocide.
Yes.
And intentionally stealing lands, driving people off of their lands, coercing indigenous leaders into giving up their lands. Beyond that, there were also boarding schools, residential schools as well, that were directly aimed at the cultural genocide aspect, with kids, babies. So really intentionally trying to erase all memory of indigenous people from the land. And I mean, from the people themselves, whether they be indigenous or Black or white, just largely trying to say, oh no, these people did not exist. This is now the USA. This is now the United States. Or I think even before this wave of people adopting land acknowledgements in the United States, Canada, it was, I feel like probably, y'all can feel free to correct me on this, but I feel like it was even more common there, because there's been the exact same thing that has happened. So yeah, although I mean, wherever you are, it could be important to have a land acknowledgement. Even if you're not in the United States or Canada, you could be in the Caribbean, you could be in South or Central America, definitely Australia.
Absolutely. I was gonna say Australia. We're looking at you.
Yeah, South Africa, looking at y'all too. Any place where there has been an indigenous population in general, but especially one that has been like displaced. Yeah.
So, I mean, can you tell us a little bit about sort of the journey to our land acknowledgement here at Minnesota Opera? Just sort of, how did it begin? Were there any roadblocks? How did we get to just sort of where we are today with it?
Yeah. So the first roadblock was a pandemic. So
Well,
this actually
I mean
yeah, we actually, I mean, this work actually didn't start with just me. Back in, I think, January of 2020 or February of 2020, when we were going to premiere the opera Edward Tulane. Back then is when we first started talking about including a land acknowledgement in the show programs, and possibly as a message that appeared on the super titles above the stage. Just at the very beginning of the opera, before any notes had been sung. So obviously, Edward Tulane did not happen. Wah, wah.
Maybe one day.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure someday soon, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Someday, because those costumes looked really cool. But
They
anyway,
did. And I worked very hard on that trailer back when I was.
Oh, I know you did.
That was a really hard one. All right. Anyway, sorry. Not that this is about me, like, at all.
Yeah, let me get out my feelings.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, there was a big pause because of the pandemic, and I mean, obviously dealing with some other impending issues like rescheduling everything,
Rescheduling Earth.
right, rescheduling Earth itself, and like no one really knowing what our programming would look like. But I would say, especially with the onset of, or with the instatement of the impact department, and the reworking of our roles and our job titles and descriptions, I knew then that this was like something that I wanted to work on. And when Lee came on as the VP of Impact, he totally agreed that, just like, yeah, this is something that that we could have been done. I mean, obviously there some pretty clear reasons why why it didn't happen before, but absolutely, like, let's go for it. I told him that I felt pretty comfortable about being able to just do my research and figure out what an appropriate statement would be. I mean, the thing about land acknowledgement is that it isn't always just cut and clear, like one indigenous group that has occupied a place, because people migrate, and then there is, I'm not going to get too much into it because I am not Dakota or Ojibwe, but there can be conflicts between indigenous nations, or there can be, ways that people got switched around during the colonial period and all of that. So it wasn't as simple as just like finding, one group, especially since we're the Minnesota Opera, and yeah, we're based in the Twin Cities. But if you're want to try to consider all of Minnesota, then there's even more indigenous nations to include. So I did that research, found something appropriate, and I can read our land acknowledgement.
Well, I'm just curious, before you read it, what did the research look like?
Yeah, so to me it looked like going to just looking at like which nations had offices or communities nearby. I looked at that, and there a lot of them have like something about their history on their website. So I looked at several, and just what the common narratives are. I want to say it's the Minnesota Historical Society that has some really good information on the Twin Cities area specifically, and the area called Bedote, where two waters meet, where the Mississippi and Minnesota rivers meet. That is like the center of Dakota creation. So I looked at those narratives as well. There was also just talking to people. There's the indigenous like friends that I know, and recalling what they have said about this area and about its history. But yeah, mostly looking at local indigenous led organizations, or tribal communities, or the reservations that are in Minnesota as well. A lot of them have websites with the history as well. So yeah, all of that is what went into it with research for me.
And then I remember a few months ago, you organized a lecture for the staff with the Tell
Lower
me.
Phelan Creek Project.
Thank you. I did.
Yes.
I was like, what's the order of the words? Lower Phelan Creek Project. And so were they involved as well?
Not directly in
Okay.
the making. I hadn't made the connection with them yet, but I definitely when we were first meeting and just planning that presentation, read the land acknowledgement to them and was like, thoughts, and they were like, great.
Oh, nice. Nice. Well, shout out
um
to them. And they just had
yeah,
a big victory. Got the funding
they
for their
sure
cultural
did.
center. So that's so exciting for them.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited. They are, I think, starting construction at the end of this month
Oh my
at
gosh.
Wakan Tipi Center. Yeah.
Oh. Well,
Yeah.
everybody go check them out. We'll put a link. Check out Walk on TP Center because it's just going to be dope
It's
when
gonna
it's
be
done.
so
So,
amazing.
but without any further ado, please go ahead. Sorry for interrupting.
Oh no, it's all good. So the Minnesota Opera land acknowledgement right now says Minnesota Opera is located on Dakota land. Though we have arrived here in a multiplicity of ways, we recognize our occupation on land that is of great historical, spiritual, and cultural significance to Dakota people. We also acknowledge the past and present harm done to Dakota, Anishinaabe, and other indigenous nations through the systematic forced removal of communities and the unjust seizure of their lands. We urge you to join us in reflecting on our place in these histories and rectifying the erasure of indigenous peoples in our art form. So yeah, there were like several thoughts that went into it. That, I mean, the places where the Minnesota Opera like office is based and where we performed is Dakota land specifically.
Mhm.
Like I said, we're near, the center of Dakota creation story, lands that are very, very sacred. Many different villages and communities that were here, sacred grounds. There are even the sacred burial mounds on the east side of St. Paul over there. That's where Wakan Tipi is located nearby. Um, yeah, but also in the context of Minnesota as a whole, there are Anishinaabe nations as well. So in case you don't know, Anishinaabe people live, their historical homelands are around Minnesota, I think maybe northern Wisconsin too, and just like this, a lot of this Great Lakes area. And there are lots of different peoples that are Anishinaabe, that fall with under that umbrella. It's a wider name for many different peoples who have a shared history and culture. So yeah, it was important that they be included as well, while naming that Minnesota Opera is specifically located on Dakota land. Yeah, and I also wanted to have something within it that makes it feel actionable.
Mhm.
Knowing that like the opera industry alone can't like decolonize the whole nation. So there's a reason why it specifically said, I mean, it would be cool if that was within my power. Like, great, land back, let's do it. But there's a reason why it specifically says, like, we urge you to join us in reflecting on our place in these histories and rectifying the erasure of indigenous peoples in our art form.
Mhm.
So I think like with any struggle against any kind of oppression, there's all kinds of different roles that people can take, and we need them all. Like, we need everybody across, whatever industry they're in, whatever skill they have, whatever they can do to be aware of this and to be working on this within their capacity. So that was the other, thought that went into it. And if you visit our page, mnopera.org/EDI, slash I think MN opera and land acknowledgement, something like that.
Yeah, if you go to the EDI page, you'll find it, but I'll put a link specifically.
There'll be a link in the notes.
There'll be a link in the notes. There'll be a link in the notes. No, and that part about being it being actionable, I think is just so important because
yeah,
I think so much of the skepticism when you hear about land acknowledgements, like people like, oh, you're bleeding heart, blah, 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 blah. Like, oh, hi, land, we acknowledge you. But it's like, no, it goes so much deeper than just sort of, just sort of acknowledging that we're on this stolen land, like that we're here and we're actually trying to make a difference and steward that land, or give the land back to the people who originally stewarded it.
Yeah. It's about being in like more intentional relationship with it. And I think
exactly
with how climate change is going, with how this global pandemic is going, I think we all are, or at least should be, recognizing how powerful our relationships actually are, and that being a good steward of them should be a priority.
I was at a function a few months ago and I was sitting having a conversation with someone, and they actually said like, and I guess like in the next few years, like when all of this climate change stuff like starts to happen, and I was like, what?
Starts?
Where have you been?
Right.
It's 115 degrees in September. Like,
it's already happening.
Okay.
And I mean, also Indigenous communities are often the first people to feel the effects of that climate change because of where they're located, because of I need to look up what the actual statistic is, but it's been like proven that Indigenous people protect the majority of the world's biodiversity, the majority of the things that keep the planet alive and thriving and us breathing, our waterways, our forests, all that. So yeah, it's pretty important. I would even venture to say that we would be far better off if we were listening to Indigenous leadership and maybe giving them their land back. And there's actually some pretty comprehensive plans for how we can do that with like national parks, public spaces. We can even just start there. To me, the two are super, super tied. Like, yeah, honoring like Indigenous leadership and Indigenous stewardship over lands is like one of the biggest ways that we can tackle the climate crisis we're all in.
And we're actually in it, just in case anyone's confused.
Right.
It's a thing. It's actually happening.
But stepping off my soapbox on that.
No. Feel free to just stay up there because somebody needs to be up there. Good God. Well, one question that I know that came up as we were creating this document, was the idea that there are folks who look like us, Black folks specifically, who are not on this land of their free will.
Yeah.
And so I'm just how did we sort of wrestle with that?
Yeah, that's another part of like why the language says that what it does. The part about arriving here in many different ways. I was just talking to a group of friends about this last week, and how in reading or listening to Indigenous artists, scholars, whoever, and specifically I mean Indigenous to here, to Turtle Island, how sometimes it can be a little frustrating for me as a Black person, because I'm like, well, okay, I'm not Native and I'm not a settler. Like, what do I do? Like,
yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Like, and don't get me wrong, I know it's completely necessary to, you know, talk to your own folks and talk to white folks and settlers about what they've done. Like I get why that conversation is happening, of course. But sometimes I'm just like, the rest of us got to get together and, you know, decide or well, what our place is in this, or ask Indigenous, you know, people what our place is in this. So wanting to be sensitive to that as well. And also just like at an opera company, we have so many people who come in from all over the world.
The world, yeah.
Yeah. All over the world, from all kinds of, you know, different countries, different nations, different political contexts, all of that. So we wanted to feel like something that all of us could say and, you know, have it feel genuine and like a, you know, reflection of our actual our all of our backgrounds. Mm-hmm.
Well, so now we've got this statement in place. You know, it's up on our website. It will be in our materials going forward, which is very exciting. But, you know, apart from that, can you talk a little bit about some of the things that Minnesota Opera is doing to help with that stewardship? Can't say that word for some reason. Stewardship. You know, we've got an event coming up this Monday, which is super exciting, which you have organized with the Friends of the Mississippi River. So I was wondering if you could tell the people a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So I would say main, like, biggest project we've done to follow up on this land acknowledgement. And to be clear, like, the land acknowledgement itself is not the most important part. It is what you do with it. It is what you do after. It is actually living, embodying the values, which is also why I didn't want to spend too much time in the making of this land acknowledgement, because I was like, okay, that's great. Yes, it has to have the verbiage that we all feel good about, but what about after that? What are we actually going to do? So we have a partnership with Friends of the Mississippi River. They are a local organization that stewards different areas along the Mississippi River here in Minnesota. And they are also, you know, focused on having an equitable approach to their work, not just having white environmentalists, you know, talking about the importance of saving the river for recreational purposes or something like that. They're also, you know, actively acknowledging who has stewarded the river and the areas around it way before they ever did. So have a similar, you know, kind of justice-centered approach as us, talking about how, you know, returning these areas to being under Indigenous stewardship is a great way to actually help the health of our environment. So it just felt like a natural alignment. Also, one of the people there, shout out to Laura Manhill, is a friend of mine and who I've known, you know, just through other organizing efforts in the Twin Cities. And so I thought this was a great idea for us to do something where we were, you know, working on something that was a priority, that is a priority to Indigenous communities. You know, the health of the lands that are sacred to them, that are traditional to them, while making a, you know, physical, like, impact on the environment that is positive, and that is actually near the Opera Center. So we have been doing cleanups on a place called Nicollet Island that is really close to downtown Minneapolis. And actually that area was, you know, super sacred to the Dakota people. One of those, so there's Nicollet Island itself. There was another island nearby that was pretty sacred as well, but was collapsed with all the industry and all the industrialization that happened here. I want to say around like late 1800s, early 1900s.
When you look at like pictures
there.
from back then, yeah.
Like
so the bridges and the big giant factories and whatnot, and it's just like it's such a tiny little island, and it's got like 8 factories on it. It's like okay, not sure how that worked, but all right,
pretty wild. So there was actually a whole, like, in case y'all don't know, a whole natural waterfall, natural falls that were over here. Now we have like the dam and all of that because those falls collapsed. Ugh. Because
oh my god,
the settlers were doing way too much, like way too much. They collapsed. And I may be getting this wrong, if that the island was either destroyed as well, or if they intentionally destroyed it. But either way, restoring that area has been named as important to local elders. From what FMR, the folks at FMR have told me, they used to do tap maple sugar or maple trees on the island as well. So like that's one thing they're trying to restore, bring back, the maple tree groves and things like that. There was an area over there where Dakota women would go to give birth. So again, pretty important.
Sounds pretty important. Sounds pretty sacred.
Okay. And I mean, I think maybe because so many people in the US have a story of their ancestors either migrating intentionally, consensually, or being stolen and, ending up here with no choice or say in the matter. I think sometimes it can be hard for us to conceive of being so deeply connected to a place on a cellular level, like your ancestors have lived here in this area for thousands of years. Like, I think that can be hard for us to conceptualize.
Sure.
I'll say
that makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah. I mean, I have friends and people I've met in community who are Dakota, and they maybe grew up or were born in a different state, but like they more than once now someone has said to me, like, because this is like the center of the Dakota Nation, like this place feels more like home, like just on an energetic level than wherever they grew up. And I was like, well, yeah, that that totally makes sense. So when it comes to Minnesota Opera, we have, taken on this charge to care for some of the areas on Nicollet Island. So we removed trash to help in just improve the water quality, to improve things for the plants and animals in the area. And then coming up on Monday, we will be removing buckthorn. It is an pesky invasive species that tends to choke out other things around them. The animals don't really like to eat it like that. And of course, it was introduced by settlers, I think, as a like decorative shrub or something like that. And now it's just like
it's not even that cute.
It's really not even that cute, if we being honest. Yeah. So
I guess times and tastes change, I guess.
Clearly a lot.
Which I guess is a throwback to the last segment, but all right. Buckthorn, the Madam Butterfly of plants.
Yes, she's canceled. Buckthorn is canceled. So yeah, we'll be removing that. It also makes it more difficult for the animals to like make their way through the forest. So if you've seen buckthorn, it can kind of just take over. Like it makes it look like you can't even like enter wooded or forested areas, and not just in a way of like keeping humans out, but it, you know, keeps animals out too, the ones that like should be there.
So it
Yeah,
just does all the bad things.
it just does all the bad things.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
So it'll feel good to, you know, remove it.
yeah, absolutely. Oh, and that's today, because today is Monday when we're releasing this. So
Oh, okay. Yeah.
yeah, come wave. We'll be out there. Well, last question for you, Paige.
Mhm.
So if there's anyone out there who is considering, has thought about like maybe this is a good idea for my organization or my school or my home. What advice would you give to them to get them started?
Mm. Uh Ooh, I would say number one, humble yourself.
Yeah. There you
Number
go.
one is you know, realizing that a lot of us in some way are gonna be coming from a you know, colonial or colonized mindset. And so, you know, do your best to to, you know, kind of turn that switch off in your brain. And then I would say go to actual indigenous peoples in the area you live, if you can. If you can. Um yeah, whether it is, again, you can, the internet can be a really good tool when you are using the kind of firsthand sources, such as things that are on an indigenous like nation's site, and is the history the way they tell it. um, Books that are actually written by indigenous people of the nation. um, yeah, of the, you know, the place where you are. um, I would also say to be wary of, or be cautious and aware of asking indigenous folks to do the work for you for free.
Mm, speak on
They already
it.
got a lot on their plate.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, just like don't do that, especially if you're at a multi-million dollar organization. Come on now, set some aside in the budget if you really need to need to talk to somebody. Yeah, even if it's just a conversation, ask them what their consulting fee is. Ask them. Okay. um yeah, or you could also just like do really, really good research, and you can, I, I think, and a lot of people can come up with the land acknowledgement themselves. And like I said, like the follow up is the most important part.
Well,
Yeah.
there you go. And extend that
Mhm.
last one to your EDI professional friends as well. What? Who said that?
Well,
Who
I
said
mean,
that?
there's another part of this that I want to add though. It's just that like for me, part of why I this was important, and why I also felt comfortable doing the research and having the conversations to write it, was just for a while now kind of working on that slow relationship building and community building. I mean, we hear it all the time that in today's age we often want to rush things, or you know, we want to do things performatively. And I think part of, you know, righting the wrongs um is lies in relationship, in building trust, in taking the time to actually address the colonizer in your heart and mind before even getting to, doing these public statements. So like when I was in college, I was an intern at the Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian. And that was a huge humbling experience for me. I learned just so much. And, after that, continuing to listen when it came to things like I specifically remember being in DC when people were protesting the Dakota Access Pipeline, and paying attention to those conversations, being there for for the protest itself, and talking to people I knew about how they could divest from that. And then when I got here to the Twin Cities, I think the Twin Cities has like one of the largest populations, or urban population, Native American populations. Being intentional about just who I was connecting with, who I was building community with, not just the people who look like me or talk like me or the same background as me. It's been, it's not fast. It's often, not sexy. It's just, it's showing up a lot of the time. Like actually go and show up for people. And yeah, I feel like along with the land acknowledgement, that'll put you in a good place. I mean, it's a constant lifetime learning, but
well,
you have to start somewhere.
I always say we're not putting the mission accomplished banner up anytime soon.
Yep.
No. But Paige, I just want to thank you so much for shedding some light into this whole process and into this wonderful document that you created for Minnesota Opera. I think it's so important, and I think so many folks can learn from this and from this process. And I mean, you my friend, so I'm a great admirer of you, and I think you're so smart and awesome. But really, I just think this is really important work, and I'm just really proud to be at a company that values this work that you do, and you.
Aww, so sweet. Thank you.
Well, with that said, we'll be right back with our favorite part of the show. It's PB&J time. Hit it, Paige.
Hey, peanut butter jelly time. Peanut butter jelly time. Peanut butter.
We'll be right back. That was a short clip from the piece The Forest at Dawn by Indigenous composer Juantillo Vicente. And we also really wanted really quick to just say stop line 3.
Stop line 3.
Stop line 3.
But it is time, as we said, time for our favorite part of the show, where we just want to end our discussion here with a little bit of joy every time, the things that are making us happy this week. So first, I will turn it over to our special guest host, Frankie, for a little bit of Latinx joy. What do you got for us today, Frankie?
Yeah, I'm going to say what's bringing me joy today is definitely the weather. Like fall is definitely my favorite season.
You like a pumpkin spice latte?
My partner loves a pumpkin spice latte. I love a solid fire with some s'mores and sweater weather, like y'all were saying in the beginning of this. Like, just I love it. If fall could be a permanent season, I would be there the whole time.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
I like being cozy. and fall is just like you get some warmth during the day, and then when the sun goes down, you just gets a little chillier, but it's not unbearable. You're not so cold that the wind is hurting you. Like I grew up in Chicago, and that the winters between
Yeah.
the winters in Chicago and in Minneapolis, I wonder why I'm still in like the Midwest and like the North. But you know,
should be like on a beach somewhere.
it's fall. I can't do without the fall. I love the weather changing and the trees changing, and even the turkeys that come out in my neighborhood. I like making fun of them sometimes because they're funny.
I love seeing the turkeys too.
It's just so weird.
It's so weird to see just a big giant turkey walking around your neighborhood. It's so odd.
And like chasing cars and stuff.
What?
I have never. Oh yeah. I have seen these huge turkeys go after a car because they're like, you're not coming in my area, but they're in the street.
They do seem a little defensive.
They
They're
do.
defending their turf.
There was one morning a couple of years ago, I like walked out of my house to walk to the bus stop, and there was just like a gang of like 4 turkeys just walking down the street, and a bunch of my other neighborhood or neighbors were like out in the street like taking video and stuff, and I was just like, oh my god, because they're so you don't think of turkeys as being like tall, but they're so tall.
They're big.
Yeah,
like it's wild turkey, I guess.
Yeah, they hang out in the alley behind my apartment, and I'm like, "Ooh, I gotta be careful."
Wow, you might get jumped in the alley by a turkey.
There's so many of them too. There's like 6 to 8, and they'll just sort of roll up in a little group, and I'm just like, "Okay, well, y'all have fun on your little walk. Stay safe."
Thanksgiving's coming up. Y'all might want to skedaddle. Well, all right. Fall. Loving fall. Yes. What about you, Paige?
I have a black joy, pure black joy that has to do with the group that I've talked about on here before, Million Artist Movement, that I'm a part of, an admin of. So we are about to close out the second round of our Trust Black People Black Artists Reparations Fund. And it is something that I have, been organizing or been in charge of organizing with the help of our other admin and with the help of a Black Artists Council. And it just brings me joy to do. Like the first round we gave $1,000 each to 10 Black Minnesota artists, no strings attached. There's no like extra long application. You don't have to have a project or anything like that. And the winners are chosen at random. Just like reparations, just money that we are free money that we are reappropriating to our people. Yes, that is it. And so this round we were able to give it 1,000 to 8 Black Minnesota artists. So by the time this podcast comes out, it will be closed, but that means the winners will be announced too soon. And it just brings me joy to be able to do that. Yeah. And I just think reparations are a joyful thing, If you out there, you should try it sometime. I mean, giving it like giving it may bring you some joy. I'm just saying. So it's gonna bring me joy to tell these people that they've won and that they get $1,000 with just no strings, no grant monitoring or anything like that for them to use on whatever they want or need.
Like whatever they need, because I just always find that, like, you know, oh, you have to use it on this project or whatever, but it's like, it's having been an artist myself, trying to make a living, trying to make rent, trying to buy food, like there's just like this idea that like art comes from suffering, and it's like, no, art comes from like having a roof over your head, not having to worry about, you know, where your next meal is going to come from. Like that's where good art comes from. So that's awesome that you all are doing that.
Thanks. And if you are interested in giving to the Trust Black People Reparations Fund, you can visit millionartistmovement.com.
Link in the
Just
show.
throwing that out there. You know, it's almost holiday season. People gonna want to, you know, be extra generous and whatnot. So,
well, especially this holiday season.
Think about us.
You know, if you can, you know, people are in need.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you had gone last because mine is stupid.
Rocky, whatever brings you joy is not stupid.
Right.
I mean, I feel like once I get started, and like I might get canceled. But I feel like, you know, anybody who has spent, you know, even 30 seconds with me, you know, hey, the first segment of the show, I love mess, in the words of Marie Kondo.
Yes.
And so for me, what's bringing me joy is that I am a slightly ashamed member of Bachelor Nation. And coming up, I think tonight, or maybe is it tomorrow? I think it's Tuesday. We're going to have a brand new season of The Bachelorette with our third Black lead, Michelle Young, who is a school teacher and college basketball player from the Twin Cities.
Really?
Awesome.
Oh my gosh.
They filmed part of the season here.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, and she was, now, let me just I understand there have been two Black leads before, Rachel Lindsay and Matt James, and they did them so dirty. I was surprised when Michelle signed on the dotted line. Like on Rachel's season, they had like an actual racist in the cast there to antagonize the men in the house, the Black.
Oh no.
Oh yes. Oh, and they tried to be like, oh, we didn't know that he had these views, even though they were on his Facebook page and he was recruited from Facebook. So
wow. Oh, that's
yeah,
messy.
it is messy. And then the last season with Matt James, he chose this woman who in college dressed up in period garb and went to like an antebellum party and was like seen posing in front of Confederate flags. The girl he chose.
Not Miss Scarlett. Oh my gosh.
Yes. Scarlett O'Hara. He chose Scarlett O'Hara. So I'm not saying that the Bachelor franchise, and then we saw this woman, Natasha, just get royally effed over on Bachelor in Paradise this past season. So I don't really hold a lot of hope for, I hope that Michelle is safe and she finds love, because also on that same season of Bachelor in Paradise, for the first time, they had two Black folks fall in love with each other.
Imagine that.
And they're so cute. Riley and Marissa, and you go to their Instagrams and they are cute and in love. So I don't know, I guess the process works or whatever, but I'm just saying this is really exciting. This is our homegirl Michelle from our neck of the woods. I hope she goes out there. I hope she finds a nice man who loves her, and either way, whether it's messy or it's lovely, I'm sure I will be live tweeting the whole thing. So feel free to come and join me at my Twitter, Coach Buster, if you like mess. And that is my pure Black joke. Well, so I think that's going to do it for this week. Thank you so much, Frankie, for joining us. I hope you had a good time.
Of course, always. I I love y'all.
And we love you too.
love
And
you.
shout out to Lee. He will be back with us next time. Hope you are off enjoying yourself, having a lovely cocktail on us. And thank you, Paige.
Yes, thank you,
You're very
Paige.
welcome.
Yes, for schooling us and just being an awesome friend and coworker in general.
Aw, thanks.
And thank you to all of you out there for listening. As usual, if you like what you heard, please share the show with your friends. Go to Apple Podcast, write us a review, or leave us 5 stars.
All 5.
No less.
Every week. I have to say this. Cinco. Thank. 5. I don't know how else to say it, but we did get 2 more since I've been rereading everyone, so that's exciting.
Any reviews with words?
No, not yet. So
Okay.
so leave us one and we'll read it on the air. Good
Yeah,
Lord.
say nice things about everyone.
And then of course subscribe on your favorite podcatcher of choice. We are on all the things: Apple, Spotify, Overcast, all the things. So come find us, come join us, and get people to join us and join in the fun. And write us an email, thescore@mnopera.org. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you guys want to hear about, what you guys want to talk about, and just be in community with all of you. So use that email address. And I think I'm done. Anything else? Did I miss anything? Any words of wisdom before we go?
Thank you, Rocky, for being a really great producer. And you thanked everybody else.
Thanks, Rocky.
Oh, stop.
Yeah, did y'all know Rocky does like the editing and stuff, and make sure that gets uploaded, and make sure we don't sound a mess, and yeah, thank
you. You're tugging on my collar. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But I think that's it for us. So we will see you in 2 weeks. Everybody be safe, be warm, stay cozy. All right. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.